With contamination OCD, it's going to specifically link to, with all OCD, it's trying to form a bond between what your worst fear is, or not necessarily worst fear. So with contamination, but it tends to go to the worst case scenario, but not always. With contamination OCD, for example, it can latch to a feeling of feeling off, disgusting, a sensation that you really dislike, a sensation relating to an old memory that you really dislike. You then get sort of this kind of thought-action fusion contamination OCD, where if I don't do this, then it's linked to an old thought sensation from the past. So these things can get to an average doctor or therapist who's not got an in-depth understanding of OCD in general, but contamination OCD specifically is that area we're talking about. What tends to happen is that the fear is they are focusing on it from a point of, do the exposure, get used to whatever sensations there and move on, which is the typical sort of ERP-based method. The problem is with that is when there's other fears latched behind the scenes, even if they're trying to get comfortable with the sensation doesn't release because the sensation is latched into things in their thinking which aren't going to go just because you're getting comfortable with the sensation. So let's look at contamination OCD. Obviously, it can be latched to a feeling of sort of yuck, disgusting. So that could relate to feeling if they're dirty, or the belief they're dirty even though they're clean, that they're disgusting, yucky, feel wrong being around people, and that becomes a cycle in itself. Then it could be that, and this is one that's a little bit more complex, that is often not spoken about, but on this channel we try and cover all the aspects of OCD that don't get covered. It could be linked sometimes to people could have a feeling like maybe they had a trauma in the past. This is not a trauma in the present in relation to what they're thinking, but in relation to a trauma in the past that they're over. So they may have been sexually abused or something in the past. They had a sensation from that they then thought there was the thought action fusion that's linked to feelings of cleanliness, and that becomes a problem. That is not something where there's a trauma now and they need to go and do loads of investigation into the past. It is, yes, just a sensation based, but they need to have a little bit of an understanding of why that sensation's there and how that's working. Now, that is much rarer. That is obviously OCD sufferers goes, oh, that's maybe me, and that's it. No, it presents pretty clearly as them saying, oh yeah, this is linked to a feeling from the past, and this is latched in this way. Much rarer, not usually the case, although all OCD sufferers will then think that's the case. But in that case, it is getting comfortable with the sensation and understanding why they had that reaction at the time, and understanding why this new reaction that they're having, this new rational karma reaction, is actually genuine and is actually not irrational and a sort of leap out of the ballpark in irrationality. So they can understand what they're doing there in that process.